Hi there, I'm Vicki from Aussie Stampers. Welcome to my channel. Today I thought I'd do something a little different. I have a handwritten background stamp and I'm going to do it two different ways. I have three colours. I have the thank you die cut and the colours I'm using are red, yellow and blue because I wanted to start with three primary colours and have some interesting effects with this stamp. So I'm using crushed curry across almost, I guess, about half the stamp. So I'm leaving about half in the middle and then I'm going in with the red on the top section and just having it overlap some of the yellow, and then with the blue going in on the bottom section. So the actual colours I've used are real red, crushed curry and island indigo, but any red, yellow and blue inks would work well with it. The main thing you need to remember is to start with the yellow first because you don't want to contaminate your ink pads with different colours. So I'm going to stand up and just drop that down. Now this is a bit of a hit and miss with these because the stamp is slightly bigger than the paper, but I may possibly have missed some. Let's have a look. I think yes, there's just a strip there that hasn't quite stamped. That's okay because I have allowed for that and that's going to be cut down. And you can see the blue has become a bit green, the red has become a bit orange, and that's exactly what I wanted. Where it hits the yellow, it actually mixes in and you create the secondary colours with them. Now I'm just going to clean off the block and I'm going to do a second one because I'm making two cards and I thought, well, let's get all the stamping done at the same time. So that yellow goes along the middle section and it's about half the size of the block. And then I'm bringing in the blue and the red and having that overlap to form secondary colours. So where the blue overlaps the yellow, it will form green. Where the red overlaps the yellow, it will form orange. And it's very subtle and you have to look really close to actually see the blending of the colours on this. It looks as though it's intended. Now a better way to do this is to line it up this way and then drop it down, and at least you know you've got the top and bottom right. You could also lay it on its back and use a brayer, but I find that it can smudge really easily using a brayer, so I preferred this method. Now that's not too bad, so what I'm going to do is just cut those pieces off that haven't hit, and I've also got a white gel pen and I'm just going to clean up a bit of that. Okay, so here's the three colours I used in cardstock that match the ink. So I think the red and blue are going to work the best. So to form the card base, I'm going to cut a piece of cardstock in half of the red and the blue. And this gives me my card base. And I'm going to cut out some red and blue in the thank you die cut as well. Now I have a technique for doing this. You can see I have some washi tape on the top of my big shot. That's been used over and over again, so most of the tack is gone. Because if you put washi tape down and then pull it off straight away, sometimes you can pull your cardstock off and it doesn't look great. So just having a little bit of the tack removed like that helps keep your cardstock nice and clean when you take it off. So there's the thank you and I'm popping that out now. And all the spare little pieces, it pops out quite well. Now a tip for this, if you had a really intricate die cut, is you could use some greaseproof paper between the die cut and the cardstock, but I find this is quite a simple die to use. It doesn't have anything that's too intricate or too delicate in there, and I'm just taking the rest of it out with my pokey tool. And again, I'm going to bring in the die cut on that side of the cardstock, and when I use this again in class, I can keep this piece of cardstock just for the die cuts and I'm not going to waste a whole piece that way. So it's a very economical way to get the most out of a half sheet of cardstock. Now with this, you can see that's how economical it is. This time I'm going to keep the die in the metal and just poke out through the center. That's another way to get all these parts to release, and then you just poke through one of the holes and it will fall out like that. I love this die. It's a new one, so I'm really enjoying using it. Now I'm going to bring in my bone folder and crease that section halfway across the card with a nice crisp fold. Just line up the corners and that'll give you your card base. And there are different ways to put this together. You can put the red die cut on the blue base and the blue on the red. You can have the red on the red and the blue on the blue. It's really up to you what you do. But the first thing I need to do is get these art pieces, or the piece that are going on top, to the right size. So all I'm going to do is just trim off any parts where the stamp came off the edge when I was stamping it. And just trim that right down on both of them. Now they're going to be different sizes, so we need to clean this up. So you can see that doesn't look great. So at the moment I'd like to make it so that it is the same distance all the way around, give it a nice little frame, and that's how I do it. So if you look at that, you can see that looks like a nice layered piece. I haven't measured it, I've just basically used the blue cardstock underneath it to line it up. I actually think I like it with the blue and the red instead of the blue and the blue, so we'll see how we go with this. First I need to trim the next piece, and when I've trimmed off all the white pieces, now I'm going to lay it against that first piece and trim it to exactly the same size just by laying it down. And you can see by eyeballing it just how you can get the two pieces exactly the same size. So you don't need to measure, and in this case you really can't measure because the stamping that doesn't turn up on the right spot on your card needs to be corrected. So this takes care of all of that. Now the same thing is going to happen with the inside piece. This is the layering piece that I'm going to write on. Now you could cut it in half and just have it like that, but you can see it doesn't really relate to the front of the card that well with just a plain white piece inside. I'd like to have that same frame around the inside piece as well. So I'm just going to come in and cut that down again. So again, just eyeballing it, using the other piece as a guide, and get your two pieces the same size. And I'm going to stamp inside this card as well. So I have another stamp set that I'll be bringing in. I have gone through my stamp sets on my shelves and had a look and picked out a thank you stamp set that I think will go nicely with this kind of font. So the handwritten clear mount stamp set is a background stamp, and this is the Thankful Thoughts stamp set, which I'm going to use on the inside of the card. And I've picked out a couple of sayings that I like there. I'm going to use two different sayings, and I'm going to stamp them on the inside layering piece in the center. So I'm going to stamp one in the Island Indigo, and I'm going to stamp the next one in the Real Red. I always like to decorate the inside of my cards. I think it gives a more professional finish, and it gives you something nice to put your message on as well, rather than trying to write on coloured cardstock. Now I need to just put it all together. So the best way to do this, I find, is to layer the top piece with some Tombow multi-adhesive, or you could use tape if you like double-sided tape. I like to use this and then take the back off and use the spreader, and that way it gives you a bit of wiggle room, and if it's not exactly straight, you've got a few seconds to straighten it up. Now, should I use the red inside the blue or should I use the blue inside the blue? It's really up to you. I mean, I'm going to use the blue on this one and see how that looks. I'll save all the other colours for the front of the card, I think. So that says, if you could see my face, you'd see the smile you put on it. Now I'm going to put together the second card in the same way. And I'm going to put this piece inside, and this stamp reads, "Not only for your thoughtful gift, but also for the wonderful gift of knowing you." Now I'm going to use the fine tip glue pen to adhere the die cut, and I'm not squeezing this, I'm just dotting it. You really only need a tiny amount. I find less is more with this. When I first started using this, I really didn't know how to use it properly, and everything everything kept getting squeezed out over the front of the image and spoiling things. You want to make sure that you don't get any of the ink, or sorry, any of the glue on the front of the die cut, because it will spoil it. Okay, and some tweezers help to line it up too. And then I like to take some paper towel and press down really hard, so if there is any of the glue that squeezes out the edge, it'll dry that up. Also make sure to dry down your surface. Once you've glued one, then clean it up before you glue the next one. You don't want to lay this die cut into some of the glue. And you can see there I just daubed a bit too much glue on, so I've wiped it off with a paper towel. And just lining that up, and again, paper towel over the top, pressing down. You want to put the lid on your fine tip glue straight away. Look at those red fingers. I've had some fun today. Inky fingers. Okay, so there they are, finished. Using those two stamp sets. Handwritten is a new stamp set, and it's a clear mount I've used, which is a background stamp set, and the die cut thank you and the thankful thoughts for the inside sentiment. And that one reads, not only for your thoughtful gift, but also for the wonderful gift of knowing you. And the second one reads, if you could see my face, you'd see the smile you put on it. So there's two different cards, two different ways to give to two different people. So I hope you enjoyed that. I really love the effect that background stamp gave with combining the primary and secondary colours. I think that turned out really, really well. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.